Road crashes remain one of the leading causes of death among young people worldwide, not just in Nigeria. And in many cases, it is preventable. Speeding, distracted driving, poor road habits, and disregard for traffic regulations continue to claim lives and leave families devastated. Today we'll be discussing young drivers and road safety, building a culture of responsible driving. Joining us this morning is DRC Uchenna Nadika, the Sector Public Education Officer, FRSC, Delta State Command. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us, DRC Uchenna
Yeah,
Nadika.
good
Good morning,
Good
DRC
morning,
China.
good
You could
morning.
not tell me there was a color code. You could just left me out of the party.
It was not
Welcome.
planned, though.
It's good to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, now to begin, our topic says young drivers and road safety, building a culture of responsible driving. So I want to know who is considered a young driver, and why are young drivers often regarded as a high-risk group on the roads?
Okay, yeah, of course. Let me also applaud the topic because it's quite timely, considering the amount of young drivers, number of young drivers we have now on the roads. And of course, young drivers usually are drivers within the ages of 18 to like 35, even though personally I like to say from 18 to 30, but it's from 18 to 35, and they are categorized as young drivers because of the age, and then secondly, they have little or no experience in driving. They have little experience in driving, considering that they just obtained their driver's license. So it could be that they just obtained their driver's license and have little experience in driving, or that they are between the ages of 18 to 35. So that's why they are categorized as young drivers. And of course, you know that as young drivers, they are associated with youthful exuberance, inexperience, like I said earlier, and young drivers too associate speed to skills. They feel that for you to be a good driver, one of the skills you will have is speeding. You must have the skill to speed. So a lot of times, that's why you hear the words raise and raise and raise and raise and raise. And you are there. Most of them like this particular vehicle. Benz, because of the likelihood to speed, all of those things. Lexus, these are the kind of cars that they like driving because they can speed very well and all of that. So basically, these are who young drivers are, and part of, like I said, some of the ills that they exhibit on the road is associated to, like I said, speeding, inexperience, because a lot of times you find out that for you to be an experienced driver, or for you to be a good driver, you must be able to observe very well, you must be able to anticipate danger, you must be able to, like I said, anticipate danger, you must be able to have patience, and concentrate on the road.
And understand road signs
And of
and
course,
traffic regulation,
have good
because
knowledge.
most of them don't even attend driving schools before
Yeah,
they
yeah.
buy their cars and go into the road. So I just want to
True.
get something clear. In Nigeria, what's the age at what age can one get a driver's license?
Once you reach our official age of adulthood, which is
18. So once you're 18, you can get a driver's license. Okay.
So what are the most common risky behaviors that you've noticed in young drivers on the road from your experience, and why do you think they indulge in such? One of them you mentioned was the speeding, and they feel like it's one of the yardsticks, the metric of a good driver and all of that. So what are some other behaviors you've noticed in them, and while you highlight them, can you tell them why it endangers their life and not just those of other road users?
There are a lot of behaviors, but I'm going to mention the very notable ones. Like I said earlier, speed. Speeding oftentimes reduces your reaction time. The amount of time you ought to react when you see a danger and you ought to react to that danger, it reduces the time. So it makes you more vulnerable. And of course, the more the speed, the more fatal or the more serious the accident or crash is going to be. Just imagine that you are speeding at 120 kilometers per hour, on the road. How do you expect a crash with that magnitude of speed to be? Of course, it's going to be very fatal. Do you understand? We do not expect someone to come out of that crash alive. Unlike someone who is running at 60 kilometer per hour or 80 kilometer per hour. So like I said, the more the speed, the more fatal the accident is going to be. Then we also have driving under the influence of alcohol or substance abuse. You know, this is something that is very common with the youth of these days. A lot of them are under several substances, colos, marijuana, a lot of things that they take, and they exhibit so many manners on the road, ill manners on the road, which some of these substances also influences their actions on the road. It gives them that temporary confidence, you know, that confidence that you can do anything. Oftentimes, their judgment is collapsed. Their sense of judgment collapses. You understand? They are not able to judge properly. They will see a trailer in front of them and it's going to look like keke. I don't know if you understand. And, you know, it's going to give them that impression that they can speed and nothing will happen.
And
you know?
overtake, yeah.
In fact, when the road is not good, they don't even care. You just see them driving anyhow. You know, it gives them that false impression of confidence, you know. And then a lot of things too. You also have, like I said, driving under the influence of alcohol. Then another thing that they also do, they also try to impress maybe their friends, maybe their girlfriends and all of that. You know, you find out that they have people in the vehicle and they want to show off. They want to show off their driving skills and they feel that driving in that manner is okay. Some of them overtake wrongly. They overtake from the right, they just overtake anyhow, they overtake at the bend, they overtake where they're not supposed to overtake, a lot of things, and they just drive dangerously on the road. Another thing that also affects them is social media pressure. You know, you find out that a lot of them, content creation, they try to do a lot of things just to promote their pages on Facebook and what have you, you know, and some of that makes them to drive wrongly. They record themselves, handle the phone, engage in what we refer to as distracted driving, you know, because when your thought and concentration is not on the road, that means you are distracted. At any given time, anything can happen because distraction just takes not up to a second before an accident occurs. You understand? So these are some of the things that they also engage in. And like I said, peer pressure. You know, a lot of times they also want to impress the people around them. And then, like I said, inexperience. I've said that before. When a driver is experienced, he's able to identify danger ahead of time. But inexperience, especially with these youths, you know, they are not able to identify danger. They are not able to see that there's a pothole ahead. They are not able to read road markings well. And like you also mentioned earlier, poor training. Some of these youths don't try to go through the proper means of getting a driver's license. In fact, oftentimes they don't even have a driver's license. You see a lot of them, you know, we have them on the road and we also charge them to court. We also book a lot of them and give them the assigned penalties for the offenses. And you find out that they try to cut corners. A lot of them just go to their friends who do not also know how to drive. It's going to teach them how to drive, because driving is not just about operating the wheels. You know, it's beyond that. Like I said earlier, that's where the experience comes in. Driving is about you, because when we talk about defensive driving, it's about you driving your own and also driving other vehicles. You know, it's not like you're going to be in their vehicle, but at least you're going to reasonably, as a driver, be able to communicate in such a way that there will be no issues on the road.
I've heard a young driver say, if you've not had an accident before, it means you're not a good driver. I've heard someone say that before. All right, in other countries like the United States and other developed countries, the age, you know, I asked you at what age can one get a driver's license, say from 18. In other countries, you see young adults or teenagers or young people at 16, they get their driver's license. So why is it different in Nigeria? Then what's the need for proper training before one, you know, gets the license and starts driving? So why is it that in Nigeria you must attain the age of 18 before you get the driver's license?
Well, it is pegged, that is the law first in Nigeria. That is the law, and the law recognizes 18 as our official age for maturity and adulthood. Do you understand? So once you are that age, there's a certain level of maturity and responsibility that comes in, and that is why it is pegged at that, you know, because like I said, driving it is also a responsibility. It's not just about you handling the wheels. So I think that's part of the reasons why it is pegged at 18. However, graduating further, 18 for the normal classes of driver's license, that is from class A to class D, you know. Then, but beyond that, that is for articulated vehicles, you have to attain 26,
Okay.
you know, and you must have driven for 3 years before you obtain that of class G and for articulated vehicles. You
Alright.
understand? Because then you also have to attain another level of maturity and experience on the road before we can able to grant you such license.
All right. Now, my next question is, even in the developed countries I talked about that get their driver's license at the age of 16, they pass through some tests. They must pass through some driving tests before they're issued their licenses. Here in Nigeria, what is the role of the FRSC in making sure that drivers, young drivers, have their licenses? And my next question is, if they do not, or if they did not go through driving schools or training schools to get these licenses, how then do they get driver's licenses?
No. For you to, I'm going to correct that impression. For you to get a driver's license in Nigeria, you must attend a driving school. That is compulsory. What I try to make you understand is that a lot of them don't even have driver's licenses. They just drive.
Well,
carelessly
I
on the
know
road.
I know some people who never attended the driving school but have driver's licenses.
I don't think so. I don't
Okay,
think
so-
so.
so-
However,
so-
I'm going to give you the procedure to obtain a driver's license, which of course has to do with several levels of tests that you're going to attend. So first, you must enroll in a driving school. We have what is called DSSP, Driving School Standardization Program, under the Federal Road Safety Corps, which tries to bring a minimum standard for all driving schools. In other words, we provide the curriculum, we also do the monitoring on how they operate. Do you understand? So
Who
there is
issues
a,
driver's licenses?
there is a tripartite arrangement.
Who gives?
So that's what I'm coming. Don't worry. It's a tripartite arrangement between the Federal Road Safety Corps, the Board of Internal Revenue, and VIO.
Okay.
Do you understand? So like I said, you first go for the driving school. When you are done with the driving school and you take the necessary exam, because you must take an exam. Do you understand? Then the certificate is out. You go to VIO. VIO tests you.
Okay.
They also conduct their own testing. It's done here in Asaba. I think for Asaba they do both physical and online. You know, they have an exam that you can also take online after you must have attended.
Okay, so,
the-
so when was this implemented?
It's been on ground.
So you're
Okay,
saying every
because-
driver in Nigeria,
So-
before they got their licenses, they went to the FRSC,
My-
Board of Internal Revenue, and
My own is,
and
how does
they
the
issued
FRSC
their
monitor these stages that you
Exactly.
stated now? Because now one thing is to have a law, another thing is to monitor the implementation. So is this properly monitored?
to make sure
Of
that they go
course,
to the driving schools, and
like
make sure that they pass
I
the
said
exams.
earlier, you know, of course there is a system. These are systems that have been put in place, and I'm not going to deny. A lot of people try to manipulate the system.
Exactly,
Do you
because I know
understand?
drivers who never
Uh-huh.
attended training
We
schools and
won't
they
we
have
won't deny
licenses.
that. However, we also have incidences where when you are caught, for instance, the driving schools, when they're about, I think, was it last year or so in Anambra, about 6 or 10 driving schools were shut down.
Okay.
Do you understand?
So there are
For some of
punitive
these,
measures.
of course, some of them, their licenses withdrawn, you know, all of these things. So it's there. We won't deny that some of them try to manipulate this. However, from time to time, we also upgrade the system to make it more stringent.
Okay.
Do you understand? To make it much more fortified and less opportunity for them to manipulate the system. However, like I said, you must attend the driving school. And of course, it has even helped because before the advent of the DSSP, there was a lot of disorderliness in the
Alright.
disorderliness in the issuance of driver's licenses.
So when it comes to responsible driving attitudes now, are there other stakeholders that can play an important role? For example, parents, schools, communities, or is solely the job of law enforcement agencies like the FRSC, VIO, what we call Delta State Traffic Management Agency? Is this solely their responsibility?
No, it's not. And that is why I said, that's why I always say that road safety is everyone's business. It's not just solely left out for the Federal Road Safety Corps, the police, or the DESMA. No. It's everyone's business. First, you must, as a driver, let's talk about drivers now, you must be able to go through the normal process and obey traffic rules and regulation. As passengers, as parents, and whatever you are, you must be able to speak up against wrong driving. So when you see that there are things that maybe you are in a vehicle and the driver is not behaving well, you must be able to talk to the driver. And if the driver is persistent, you must be able to also report to the relevant agencies. As parents, you must also be able to groom your wards. You know, that's why we also have what we call school advocacy. We have the road safety club. We try to catch them young, you understand? So we teach all these kids, we teach the children, because they are the future drivers that we are going to have. So you as a parent ought to also guide your children right from that stage, because they are the future drivers that we are also going to have. They are the future drivers, they are the future policy makers, they are the future fleet managers and what have you. You know, they are the future of Nigeria.
Is there still an FRSC CDS group where core members have
Of course.
and you people still actively engage?
Of course we go for public enlightenment, we go for traffic control together. We have meetings with them almost on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Almost on a weekly basis. So there are so many things. We also go for public education. We also go for church advocacy, market advocacy, mosque advocacy, parks. All of these things, we try to engage everyone. We take out every opportunity, especially to reach out to both youth, both adults, any category of driver at all.
Okay. Some young drivers believe that they can break traffic rules when the roads are empty, especially at night. Now, at night when I close from work and we're driving, back home, you see the way these young drivers drive at night because they believe that the road is empty, so the overspeeding is on another level. What do you have to say to them? That because they believe that once the road is empty, then they can break any traffic rule. And aside from driving skills, what other values should drivers develop?
Okay, so first let me start from there. Responsibility does not really need you to check the time. You ought to be responsible, whether at night or at in the afternoon or daytime. You ought to be responsible at all times. And let me also state this: a lot of times, for instance, people tend to be responsible in the daytime because of road safety and other traffic agencies and all of that. But you also forget that night is more dangerous. Oftentimes, your carelessness could lead to a crash, and that crash, you might not determine how severe it can be. That's one thing about crashes. You can't say, oh, this crash is going to happen, or crash is going to tell you when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So oftentimes, it is good that you avoid it. And how do you avoid it? By staying responsible, whether in the daytime or at night. Because when anything happens, it's you that is going to be affected. And most likely, it's also going to affect other innocent road users. So if you have that in mind, nobody should tell you to wear your seatbelt. Nobody should tell you to always maintain the regulated or the approved speed limit at every point in time. Nobody should tell you to work on your light and fix your light. Nobody should tell you to work on your wipers, especially now that we are in the rainy season. It's for your own good, and it's for the good of not just you, of your loved one, because when you are alive, you are benefiting your family, you are benefiting the government. Yes, you are also benefiting your own people who are also reaping from your hard work. Do you understand? So that is it. And then your second question.
What other values should they develop? And you mentioned something. You mentioned fixing lights and your wipers and all that. Is there a link or is there a connection between car maintenance and road safety? Because you see some of these young drivers, they don't even wash their cars most times, and I doubt if they fix their cars.
Are you speaking from experience?
I see them on the road. We see them driving. We see them. Sometimes they don't even wash their cars. Sometimes they don't even fix their lights. So is there a connection between car maintenance and road safety?
There
also,
is.
what values, aside from being able to drive, what values should they develop while using the road while driving?
There is a connection between
Values or attitudes?
between car maintenance and it's an obvious connection. I don't think it requires much explanation on it. It's an obvious connection, because when your car is not good, it could lead to a crash, especially when you notice that there are signs that the car has been given to you and you are still trying to force the vehicle to move. It could develop issues at a very wrong time, and it could lead to a crash, or it could lead to obstruction and all of that. However, I always preach, and we will always preach, what we call defensive driving. Defensive driving is all about, like I said, driving your own and driving other people's own. It has to do with you anticipating danger and knowing how to react to such danger. Defensive driver has to deal with drivers knowing the rules and regulations in driving and also maintaining them. Defensive driving has to do with you as a driver being patient, being tolerant towards other road users, not just drivers, but also obeying the rights of pedestrians, also obeying the rights of passengers that you are also carrying, and having them in mind whenever you are driving. Defensive driving has to do with a whole lot. So you as a driver must adopt defensive driving skills.
Now, quickly, what's technology-wise, what has the FRSC done to curb these lawbreakers, traffic lawbreakers? Because I've seen, and it's not just limited to the FRSC, to be fair, we've seen situations where in a bid to enforce a traffic law or maybe apprehend or arrest a defaulter, that it leads to pandemonium along the road and endangers other road users. So are these situations where somebody's over speeding, you don't have to violently enter the road to want to stop the person, or someone runs the traffic light? What measures are put in place? How do you flag that a driver on the road, the person's driver's license is expired? Are there technology in place to curb all of these?
Okay, yes. The Federal Road Safety Corps has actually gone far in terms of that, even though we always say that there is room for improvement. You know, the only room made available in every place is the room for improvement. So we as an organization, in some of our, some parts of our organization, maybe in Abuja and some other places, we have what is called body-worn cameras, where we also use to monitor road users and drivers. So if you have any issue, we'll just play it for you. Do you understand? We also have our devices, they are readily available. Do you understand? Your phones, some of us have the cameras that we have on the spy cameras that we have on our glasses and all of that, so it can easily detect. We also have what we call the radar gun that we also use.
What's that?
The radar gun is a device used to test your speed. You know, so in case you want to argue when we're on patrol and all of those, all we need to do is to deploy the radar gun when we see that you are approaching with speed. I cannot give you details as to how it is used. Do you understand?
So, but if you cannot stop the driver, is there a way you can book a driver without necessarily stopping the driver, and the driver?
Of course, that's why we have the court. Do you understand? That's why we have the court. We've charged so many people to court without necessarily having to enforce it there. All we need to do is to get your number plate, and if possible, we also have your driver's license. But mainly, especially when you don't want to stop, all we need to do is to capture your number plate, and the rest is we have your details. That's why we have a database for all the number plates there. And just as you also know, it's also used. I think the state government is also using the same. So all they need to do is to use their camera. The camera that has been mounted in different parts of the city. They just capture your number plate and you get a message. So the road safety also has that, but our own could lead to an arrest, and then we also charge you to court.
What penalties does the FRSC have for reckless drivers?
There are different penalties for different offenses. However, for dangerous driving, which I want to believe is what you mean by reckless driving, you know, the penalty is 50,000. That's for monetary penalty. However, most of these offenses are liable to 6 months imprisonment, and I think between 6 months to 7 years. 7 years is when it involves human life. Do you understand? Okay. So yeah, so it depends on the judge or the magistrate, whoever it is that is handling the case. She can decide to either reduce not the monetary penalty, but maybe the month you're going to serve, or just in case.
All right. Your last message to a young viewer who's watching, on how they can build long life, responsible driving culture, and to companies who employ young drivers. I actually forgot to mention that, because when we talk about these truck drivers that drive recklessly, I've had cases of them, the drivers being very young. When they are apprehended, you notice that they don't even have driver's licenses, and many of them are quite very young. So what would be your last message to a young driver out there?
Well, to buttress what you just said, the Road Safety Corps has what we call the Road Transport Safety Standardization Scheme, which has companies who employ like the fleet operators who have vehicles and they employ drivers, they run under, so they're supposed to have safety managers. However, we also use that means to also regulate them in that
Okay.
aspect. So, but then as a driver, you must be responsible. So we advise every driver, whether young or old, to be a responsible driver and to also adopt defensive driving skills, obey traffic rules and regulation, and ensure, like I said, that you are a responsible driver. Speed thrills. You can be happy speeding, but then it also kills. Thank you very much.
DRC Uche Nadika, thank you so much for taking our time to come join us this morning and
Thank
for
you.
sharing with us your knowledge. We just hope that today's interview segment will encourage young drivers to make safety their priority. Once you get behind the wheels, understand that every decision you make will help save your life and the lives of others. All right, that's it for today. Ogaga, the last thing.
All right, I would like to leave you with what Officer Nadika said, that we should be responsible every time, whether anybody is watching or not. As a human being, just be responsible even as you go about your daily activities and across all spheres of life. I am Ogaga Kama, thanking you for being a part of this morning ride.
On behalf of the production team, this is Blessing Usiagbada saying thank you so much for joining us on Monday.